And welcome on in to the latest edition of the Blue Horseshoe podcast. George Bremer and Ryan Hickey here with you post-draft. And we finally, George, were able to see some of the draft picks in uniform officially for the first time today. So let's not even keep the audience waiting whatsoever. Let's just get right into it. The biggest news of the day, quarterback-wise, is that the Colts cut Nick Foles. Your instant reaction.
Yeah, huge news, right? Waiting for that all off season. I like it because I'm not going to get any more questions. Every time I tweeted, any of the transactions the last couple of days, the Colts released whoever, I would immediately get someone on Twitter. Why have they not released Nick Foles? Well, they have. The moment you've all been waiting for has come to fruition.
The biggest news of the day, quarterback-wise, yes, Nick Foles is no longer a Colt.
Now he has to sign a one-day contract with the Eagles and retire in front of his statue.
That's all. You are 100% right about that. But in all seriousness, it was the first time we saw Anthony Richardson in a Colts helmet, in a number 5 jersey. George, you were at practice today. He threw his first official passes as a Colt. Obviously, first day of rookie minicamp means everything. So what was your initial takeaway from watching Anthony Richardson in the flesh in a Colts uniform for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, clearly this team is Super Bowl bound. I mean, that's the obvious takeaway. He's as advertised. There are things he does that few humans on earth can do. His arm strength is real. We were about 70 yards away. Where we watch at the complex is behind the end zone, and there's 2 fields. So we were in the middle of the 2 fields, at least 70 yards away from where they were in this particular rep. And he drops back and he throws like a curl route to one of the receivers, and the guy let the ball get into him too much, and it hit his chest, and you could hear the pop where we were at. So, first of all, feel bad for that guy. Probably gonna have a little Wilson tattoo now on his pec. But at the same time, it's just that arm strength is real. I mean, it's functional too. I mean, it's not just something where he throws it hard, in testing. Like he has legit arm strength. You knew that already. And there was good and bad in the 11-on-11 portions, which that's what this year's going to be. I think I think everybody needs to prepare for that. There were some really good throws. There was one in particular where a guy was open over the middle on a slant, and he just missed him. He just airmailed it, and that's going to happen. I mean, that's especially on day one. That's going to happen. But there's also a really nice route on the sideline. He threw it right into Josh Downs, who, by the way, catches everything. That guy,
it's a vacuum, huh?
Yeah, he was really impressive. And he had said he went out last night at the hotel, went out in the parking lot, was catching passes with Richardson, and you can tell that even on day one, I don't think they had an incompletion between them in anything they were doing. Routes on air during the 11-on-11, during the 7-on-7, which I guess my biggest takeaway was it'll be interesting to see if this happens in the training camp. But when they did 7-on-7, Shane Steichen had coaches, trainers, guys like that up where the defensive line would be with pads. So there was not much of a pass rush, but there was pressure on the quarterback even in 7-on-7. I hadn't seen that before. That was new. It'll be interesting to see if that's just a rookie camp thing or if they continue that, as the year goes on. But I think on day one, he was as advertised. You can see the talent that's obvious with him, and he's got work to do, but we knew all that coming in.
Well, that's 100% right? We talked about that ad nauseum, really, even before Richardson was drafted. But when we were talking about the possibility of Richardson being the guy here in Indy, it was throw out the record book in 2023. It's all going to be about his, development throughout the year. And that's why wins and losses are not going to matter, especially in year number 1, because it's all going to be about how can he improve from rookie minicamp to training camp to week 1 to week 18. That's all 2023 is going to be about. Now, you hear about the arm strength, you hear about some of the inaccuracies. I'll tell you this right now. If I'm Shane Steichen or any of those other coaches or staffers that are doing the mock rush in a 7-on-7, I'm putting helmet on. I may put shoulder pads on. The last thing I need is a Richardson, late release, balls low, buzzing by your head there. And, you're in concussion protocol for 2 weeks after getting drilled in the noggin. That's one thing, one tip, George. Actually, 2 tips. That's number 1. If I'm a coach, put a helmet on next time you do a little mock rush. Number 2, for you in the media, You talked about the sound that Richardson's pass, how hard he threw it, hit off the chest. Maybe is there any hockey pane glass that you could put up, as a barrier for you guys in case the ball is a little errant? Again, I don't want, anyone in the media going down with an injury too. That's
I
the
never
arm, like you
felt
said, the arm strength is real.
I never felt in danger today. Training camp, that's a different story. You're on the sideline there. That I'm gonna make sure that I'm paying attention in training camp. I don't want to get hit
Maybe
with
get
one of
on
these
the jugs machine
fastballs.
this summer.
And
Just in
the
case,
thing is,
you
like,
gotta show the hands, George.
right, right. I think the thing with him too, a lot of it's just placement right now. I think that's why you feel confident that it's something that's fixable. The one today that he missed, it's a little bit too far out in front. It's a little bit too high. I think he changes footwork, changes the time that he releases it, probably completion. And I think that's something that's what this is for. That's why you have rookie mini camp and why you have this time of year to kind of, get some of those things ironed out. And it's going to take a while. There's no question. Just as there's no question that there's a tremendous amount of talent with this kid.
And you go back to, if anyone's watched the Colts in-house series with the next pick, which is just tremendous insight and behind the scenes of the scouting process this entire offseason. On the latest episode, what they showed was Morocco Brown and Anthony Richardson talking after Richardson's pro day. And Morocco asked him, what's the biggest thing you've been working on this offseason? And he said footwork. And that's, like you said, that's really where a lot of accuracy issues can be solved. And we saw with Josh Allen a few years ago, he put to bed the rumor that you can't improve your accuracy. If you're inaccurate in college, that means you're going to be inaccurate in the pros. We have seen that debunked. So again, with Richardson, like you said, it's going to be a process. It's not going to happen in the span of one practice, 1 week, or 1 month. You got to build from the ground up. Like I said, that's what, especially these early practices in May or 4th, May 5th. There's no reason to be hitting the panic button or freaking out if there's a few inaccurate passes. And even after, in week 18, if it's still the same issues, again, it's going to happen. Like I said, it's going to be a process. But one of the things I'm excited about, George, and I was thinking about earlier today, especially now with Richardson kind of being on the field for the first time, this is going to be 2023, the first year the Colts have a quarterback without really any limitations, physically or injury-wise, since like really 2014 with Andrew Luck, the year they went to the AFC title game. Because ever since that year, Luck was dealing with injury issues that limited his play. And then even 2018, when he was back fully healthy, he was still trying to get back into that old Andrew Luck that we saw for a large part of time when he was healthy. Philip Rivers was older, no mobility. Same thing with Matt Ryan. Carson Wentz had a lot of, liabilities, especially with his decision-making. And this is like the first time you kind of go into a season where physically the Colts quarterback will not be limited by anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're not limiting his reps for any reason. If anything, you're probably giving him more. I mean, I think that's going to be an interesting, one of the things I want to see is every year that Chris Ballard's been here, they've had 4 quarterbacks in training camp. That's sort of his number. They like to have that 4th guy, take a few of the reps, take some of those things off people's arms. The last couple of years, that was really important. You got a 39-year-old Matt Ryan, and I think it was 38-year-old Philip Rivers when he was here. You want to try. This year's the opposite. I think this year it's going to be give him more. Give him twice as many reps. He's not only not limited, you want him out there. He took the vast majority of the reps today, as you would expect. I mean, there were 2 tryout quarterbacks there who got some reps each, but it was probably, I didn't count it, but it was probably 60% Richardson, as you would expect it to be. I mean, you want to get him out there, and this is what he needs, the experience. Get him out there and get him the work. Physically, there's nothing there that we know of. There's no talk. There's no surgery that he's coming off of. There's no injury that he's working through. That's new for the Colts. They have a young quarterback in his prime, before his prime, and being physically able to do everything. It'll be interesting how that goes with the offseason too. We talk a lot about the slow starts this team's gotten off to. That plays a part in it. When your quarterback doesn't do all the work, and in 2018, he didn't really. I think the first passes that Andrew Luck threw were at veteran minicamp that year, late May, early June. You don't have to deal with any of that this year, and it should. Now you got a lot of other things. You got rookies everywhere. You got a new head coach. There's a lot of other things that are going to be learning experiences for this team. But the quarterback is healthy. The quarterback is unlimited. It's a good place to start.
It is, and it's also exciting too. Like already, it feels like the energy to me at least feels a little different And I'm not saying that, teams in the past were complacent or that Frank Reich himself was complacent, but you see, even you hear the story, like you just mentioned before about Josh Downs and Anthony Richardson being so excited to get to work that they're in the parking lot on Thursday night before the night of the first practice, throwing passes and getting reps in. Like there's an innate hunger there with a guy like Josh Downs and with Anthony Richardson, with having a new head coach at Shane Steichen there. There just feels like a new energy, a new almost sense of urgency in a way that is a nice change up from years past. And I hopefully, like I said, that leads to quicker development and leads to at least, even if it doesn't equate to wins, more excitement and more of a reason to watch.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the important things to carry through this year when they have some adversity and things don't go their way. Can you keep that hunger? Can you keep that excitement? And I think that's going to be one of the most important jobs that Shane Steichen has this year, to show them where things are going right, to show them how close they are, and to keep that, because right now there's no doubt. I'd say one of the biggest takeaways I had from Richardson, I meant to say this earlier today, when he would finish a rep and the other guys were going, most of the time he was shadowing what they were doing. He was going through the steps, working on his footwork, mock throwing the ball. That to me shows a little bit. He's the number 4 overall pick in the draft. If anybody out there could have just come out today and basically showed up and said, I'm here, and that's that, he could have done it. And yet he's out there working like an undrafted guy, trying to make sure even in between reps that he's working on footwork. He's working on throwing motion. It's little things like that that really, I think, helps sell you on this kid, because he talks the talk, and now in one practice, he's walking the walk.
That point right there is so important, George, because all off season, the very few clues and a little insight we got into the thinking in the brain of Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen when it comes to quarterbacks, which Shane Steichen kind of repeated the most, arguably, is he first and foremost looks for that quarterback that loves the game, loves the grind, and is just looking to get better each and every day. And he's related and talked about Jalen Hurts and how he knew kind of almost from day one, this kid's not failing because he works too hard. He cares too much, and all he does is want to get better every single day, that it's impossible for him not to have success. And we saw that very quickly. Jalen Hurts rise to prominence, become the starter, get him to the playoffs the very next year, second in the MVP voting. And you heard Steichen all offseason talk about, you need to have the love of the game, love for the game, love to get better, love the grind more, especially. That's what it is. It's a grind every day to get better. And you hear Anthony Richardson, whether it was at the scouting combine earlier this year, talk about how, hey, Tom Brady, won 7 Super Bowls and is still working hard every single day. So if he's working hard, like there's no reason for me not to work hard. That's obviously, it's easy then to talk, but it's day one. I understand it's May, so we're not trying to get carried away, but you just are able to bring some real life insights into, now he's putting those words into action, even if it is just as small as doing extra practice reps to make sure his footwork is where it needs to be, or mental reps of, okay, this route is called, this is the defense that they're playing, where am I checking, where am I going with the ball? Every little bit helps for a guy that does have a long way to go. And like you said, you feel good about Shane Steichen's ability to coach Richardson. You feel good about Richardson's ability to develop as a, hopefully a franchise quarterback for this team, if the will and the want to get better every single day is there. And again, it's day one, so let's not get crazy. But so far, it sounds like, George, like I said, he's so far pairing the talk and the walk together.
Yep. No, multiple Lombardi trophies this year. Multiple Lombardi trophies this year. That's the goal. No, but realistically, you watch him. I think the word that Shane used the most in the offseason was obsession. He wants a guy who's obsessed with the grind. And we don't know, like you said, after one day, we don't know, but there's hints. Maybe this kid is. And they were around him a lot more. And you got to get the feeling that they got that vibe from him. To me, that was a good sign. I mean, you're trying to watch everything these guys do. He's under a microscope more than anybody else out there. And that to me was a positive sign. He also just seems like a kid that gets it. I mean, in the interviews that you've seen him do, both with us and the media, but also with the Colts team themselves, and some of the other things that he's done, in this lead up to the draft, you've heard him talk a lot about how excited he is to be here, how it's a dream come true, but how he's got a lot of work to do. That this is not the end, it's the beginning. And I think sometimes when the draft picks get themselves in trouble, it's when they're a little too happy to be in the building. Where, okay, I've accomplished what I set out to do. I don't get that sense from Richardson at all.
That's a good point too, because you see around this time a lot of draft videos released of guys getting the call from the head coach and the GM and the owner, and hey, we're taking you with this pick. Whether it's in the first round, the fifth round, everyone's emotional. Hey, I made it to the league, and you're right. For some guys, it's, oh, I made it. Like, my life is now complete. I am an NFL player. But for others, the ones who want to be great, the ones who actually not just want to make it to the NFL, but have a very successful career, their thought is, okay, we got the call, but this is not the end goal. This is really just the beginning. Like, that getting that phone call is almost in a way the easiest day of, hey, I made it, but now this is where the hard work starts. This is where the grind really starts to kind of get better and not just be a guy in the NFL, but try to be one of the guys in the league. And like I said, so far, it sounds like Richardson is more in the mindset of, I want to be one of the guys, not just a guy. And on that note, George, I think to at least wrap up day one of rookie minicamp, already it's early again. I know I said that before, but I want to repeat that in saying this. I think Josh Downs might be right now one of my favorite players. This is from the draft day call and his emotion in getting that call on day number 2 to last night catching passes from Anthony Richardson and just trying to, already put the work in. And then today, like you just mentioned before, start the pod. This is outside of Anthony Richardson content. I think the next most talked about thing was Josh Downs and just being the vacuum of anything that was in his area. He just consumed. That could be, I think, the 5-1 and that what you call a pairing, I guess, dynamic duo. That could be a big one here for Indy for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to put the ball perfectly with Josh Downs. You throw it in his vicinity, he's going to catch it. That's going to be good for a rookie quarterback. I don't know anybody, any rookie, no matter how accurate they were in college or how accurate they are in the spring and summer, when the bullets are live, that if you put the ball in this guy's area code, he's going to catch it. It's a very comforting feeling, and I think that's going to be something huge with him. The other thing with Downs, there's a picture out there on social media from the video when he got the call, and that look in his eye, Game of Thrones or something. Like, he's just ready to go and take on an entire army. You talk about a kid with a chip on his shoulder. He feels like he was the best receiver in this draft, and Reggie Wayne agrees with him. He says it. So he's got somebody pretty powerful backing him. And to go in the third round, he's angry and he's got something to prove. That's never a bad thing. And you get the rookies in here who feel like they've got, that they've got to tell the league something, and they've got the talent that Josh Downs does. And again, day one for him too. So, hey, he's being guarded by rookie defensive backs. Most of the guys on the field against him probably are never going to play in an NFL game. A lot of them are tryout guys, undrafted guys. You don't want to make too much. He wasn't burning Stephon Gilmore today. You know what I mean? But he went out there and he looked really good in his very first NFL practice. And that's worth something. And I think you get the vibe from that kid. We talk about being obsessed with the craft and obsessed with getting better. You get that vibe really strongly from Josh Downs.
And look, for someone who catches everything, and if with Richardson's accuracy questions, that's a good guy to have. That's a good connection to make too, where even if you're a little bit off, you have no problem or no doubt that, hey, Downs is going to make the catch and keep on moving the chains for sure. So let's wrap up the podcast with this, George. I want to go back one last time to draft day, because in the series I mentioned before with the next pick, there was cameras inside the Colts war room on Thursday night. And one thing I noticed that it really did bother me, that is this. The fact that I have a problem with the Colts not trading up to the number 3 overall pick. After the draft, after the first round, you were in the war room. We talked about this in the podcast immediately after Richardson was drafted. In case you missed it, Blue Horseshoe Pod on Twitter, Blue Horseshoe Pod wherever you do get your podcasts, bright blue logo. That is where our new feed is of all our new shows. And Ballard was talking about how he knew basically a month ago, this is the guy. Richardson is the guy. You have Jim Irsay saying, hey, if we were the number 1 overall pick, we would have taken Richardson. Like, doesn't matter. This was our number 1 quarterback. There's a lot of conviction there. A lot. But the thing that bothers me is the fact that when you watch this series with the next pick, it's in the war room right after the Texans chose at number 2 and the Cardinals were on the clock. There's a moment where Chris Ballard is alerted, hey, the Cardinals traded out of number 3. And for a second, he goes, kind of like freezes, like, oh boy, like, am I not going to be able to get my guy? Now, came out, obviously, as we know, is the Texans trading back up to get Will Anderson Jr. Okay, no problem. The Colts get Richardson at number 4. But here's my problem. If you were that in on Richardson, if that truly is your number 1 quarterback in this draft class, and you were all in on getting him, I don't like the fact that you were sitting there gambling on the fact that no one else would trade up to number 3 and leave the door open for someone to swoop in and steal your guy. The Titans beforehand were trying to trade up to number 3. We can now presume it was for CJ Stroud because they thought Texans were going to pass on Stroud. Obviously, they did not, and that's why the Titans never moved up to number 3. But if the Titans love, let's say, Anthony Richardson, and they moved up to number 3, you are not getting your guy. I don't like that because, again, if you had that much conviction, something's not adding up. You love Richardson that much, but you're also willing to sit there and maybe lose him and then get stuck with Will Levis. That to me is flawed logic, George. And that to me doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I mean, what it tells me is that they didn't love him that much, that they did love him, that he was the number 1 guy, in this quarterback class for him. But they said from day one that if there was somebody that was far and away the can't miss, prospect, the guy that separated himself from the group, they'd go up and get him. And the fact that they didn't tells me that they didn't see him in that way. And sure, it has to do with a lot of the flaws that we've talked about. I mean, the potential of this kid is through the roof. Morocco Brown is the president of the Anthony Richardson fan club. And he, the way he talks about him, you can see all of that, the alien qualities, the fact that this guy just does things few humans on earth can do. But at the end of the day, it's not a sure thing. There are question marks. Can he fix some of these mechanical areas that he needs to work on? Can he be a more accurate guy? Can he do it with consistency? And if he does, then it's going to be a great pick, and everyone's going to be very excited in Indianapolis, and he'll make billions of dollars, as Jim Irsay says. But if he doesn't, then that's life in the NFL. You move on to the next big thing. And I think that, to me, the Colts not moving up is telling me that, yeah, they loved Anthony Richardson and he was their top guy, but they weren't all in, so to speak. If they were, they would have gone up. I really, truly believe that.
I understand the flaws with Richardson, and again, that's part of the reason why he, quote unquote, fell, if you will, to use that word, to number 4, and the Colts didn't have to trade up to get him. But it just goes back to Chris Ballard taking the quarterback position seriously. It felt inevitable they're going to take one in the draft in the first round. But again, it just frustrated the fact that you at least speak of conviction. Maybe you're right, George. Maybe they don't love him so much, and hell with it. Him, Levis, we don't see that much of a gap. So whether Richardson goes at number 3 or not, we'll love to have him. But if he goes, we'll take Levis at 4. I think there's a way more upside, way more potential with Richardson compared to Levis. So I much rather have Richardson over Levis without a doubt. And you see the rest of the NFL kind of spoke where Levis dropped out of the first round and Richardson was the last quarterback taken in round number 1. And it's just frustrating for the fact that, again, the quarterback is the one area I don't think you can really mess around with. If you identify the guy, go get him. We've talked about this when it comes to, or we talked about it in the offseason, when the number 1 pick was still up there for grabs and the Bears didn't trade it to the Panthers. And we both were in agreement. Whatever the price is, if it works out, it's worth it. Like that, getting that guy, to me, there's no price that is too high because quarterback is so important. And if you hit, even if it's 5 first-round picks, which I know you can't do because of the rules, but let's just say that was the price you could do it. I would have no problem paying 5 first-round picks to draft the guy that you think can be the real deal. And it's just frustrating for the sense that, yes, they got Richardson, so maybe we'll just get over it, and it's no harm, no foul. But I don't like to gamble again at the most important position of, well, hopefully we get him, but if not, oh, well, we'll just settle for someone else. I just don't think that philosophy works with quarterback. Ballard used it again. Now, it could work, or at least in this sense where they wanted Richardson, it did work. We'll see if he pans out. But it's still frustrating that logic was applied even in this draft when it was so important to get the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it before. I don't like the process very much that they went through. I thought they were a little bit too laid back, and they weren't aggressive enough to go get their guy. In my mind, if Richardson was that guy and you felt like he was the top quarterback, go up to 1 and get him. And I know, hey, the way it worked out, you got him at 4. That's great. At the end of the day, the result is what they wanted. They got him at 4. They kept all their picks. I know that was the best case scenario for Chris Ballard, and it worked out. So there's plenty of other stuff to knock him for right now, like talking about how important the offensive line is and adding 2-day 3 picks and an undrafted rookie, which right now is not really much of a commitment to that area. That bothers me more right now, especially with a rookie quarterback, than the way that played out. But there's no doubt the underlying philosophy there. We talked about it all offseason. I don't feel like they were aggressive enough. You look at what Carolina did and saying, let's just get off this carousel. Let's go get our guy. The Colts didn't even do the plan B part of that by going up to 3. But at the end of the day, they got their guy, and now it's either going to work or it's not. I think that's the important thing here. That's why the offensive line element of it is the bigger issue to me, because you've now got a rookie quarterback in there. You want to give him as much help as you can. Part of the reason you take all these picks and keep them is to fill out that roster around him as best you can, let it grow with him. And an offensive line, so far, there are guys out there and I expect them to probably sign a veteran right guard at some point. But right now, as we sit here in May, the entirety of the additions on the offensive line are 2-day 3 draft picks and an undrafted rookie. So that, to me, I've got more issue with that right now.
It's a fair point. It's a very fair point again, because part of Richardson's development, like you just said, is going to be on the blocking up front. And we know, especially last year, the offensive line was a major reason. The number one reason last year was just a total failure in every sense of the word. And like you said, it's kind of same old in a way of, we're going to run it back and we're going to see if anything happens or if anything improves, but we're not going to actively be proactive and go try to make the fix instead of sitting back and seeing what comes to us and seeing how guys you play. I'm with you there, George, 100%. It happened now at the two of the more important positions in the sport at quarterback and offensive line. Hopefully it works at quarterback. Hopefully Richardson pans out to be the guy. They got him in the end of the day. So I guess in a way, no harm, no foul. But again, that process has not worked so far in recent years. And it seems like Chris Ballard is going back to the well again, which is definitely a little frustrating for sure. One other quick thing I want to run by you here before we get out of here. I meant to ask you this on Thursday, and I totally forgot. What the hell is going on with Jim Irsay's hair?
I don't know. I don't know if that's a Peter Berg thing.
Hairstylist, and who said that's a good idea to go with the, what'd you call it, rust color, gold color?
Rust is a
good.
Good.
We go there.
Rust is. I mean, first of all, when you're the owner, you can do what you want. So I guess that's the first answer to that is, when you have his money, it's not weird, it's eccentric. So that's helpful. I think he just went Hollywood. I mean, that's my theory. He was out there with Peter Berg filming the movie. I think he went Hollywood on us. I think that's my answer for Jim Irsay's hair.
Yeah, that was a shock. That was a shock to say the least. Seeing maybe that brand new look.
Maybe he's got a 20-year-old quarterback. Maybe he's trying to turn the clock back a little bit. I know Richardson makes me feel old, so I kind of get it.
That's a good. I will take that. 20 years old, George. I think you're right about that. It goes, oh wow, this guy's super young. I gotta fit in. Got to be cool what the kids are doing. Let's go. Yeah, bring the.
So have the overhead
back for like
the over-ear headphones here pretty soon. He's going all the way.
Get the Walkman back.
Oh yeah, why not?
Boombox on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Go
turn it all the way back to the 80s.
Yeah. Oh boy, I'll turn it back to the mid 2000s, George. How about that? The heyday of this franchise. That's you were talking about the clock. Let's go back there. All right.
That's a good place to go. Like May 06, for instance.
Just to pick a random year. Yeah. Oh boy. But bright days are ahead. I see the sunshine in the back. So that it's a bright day where you are, George. And hopefully it was a beautiful day. So the sun is shining
Chamber
on the Colts
of Commerce weather today. Because even the sky, I'll tell you what was interesting. Yesterday was 1 year to the day of Andrew Luck's first practice. And so then you flip to 1 day later and the new era begins. So that's, it's kind of interesting the way the calendar works out sometimes.
Yeah, that is for sure. And hopefully the bright sunshine on Richardson's first day is a sign of things to come. That many bright days are ahead for himself and our head for the Colts and their fans as well, George. Fingers crossed. But the Anthony Richardson era officially underway as Friday. He had his first practice. Very exciting so far. The 5 looks good. We'll see how he progresses throughout rookie minicamp, get to OTAs, get to training camp, and let's get the Richardson Steichen era started here for the Colts. So that'll do it for this edition of the Blue Horseshoe Pod. Really do appreciate you tuning in. Make sure, if you like what you hear, you subscribe on YouTube, Blue Horseshoe Podcast. You download the podcast wherever you get your pods, Blue Horseshoe Pod, bright blue logo. And also, you want to email us, bluehorseshoepod@gmail.com. George will answer your questions. Maybe I'll answer your questions as well if you want to hear my answers as well. We'll get your Colts questions, I should say. It's a Friday. I apologize. Your Colts questions answered right here on the pod. So have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. Where else? But right here on the Blue Horseshoe Podcast.